sea slavery, murder of stowaways, arms trafficking, intentional dumping of everything under the sun, including oil and nuclear goods, illegal fishing, overfishing, illegal whaling. One of the things that I really wanted to do was look at the intersection of environmental and human rights. It is a real thing to think about the ways in which one type of crime often drives the other. So for example, on the issue of sea slavery, there's real evidence that as industrial fishing especially has raked clean the fishing stocks that are near shore and really depleted those stocks to extreme degrees, fishing boats are now having to go so much further out from shore to catch a bare minimum. What that has done in many places, like on the South China Sea and the Thai fleet, is it's incentivized the use of migrant trafficked workers because you can get them on the cheap. And you also might just not have to pay them at all. And that's a perfect example of how environmental threats are making human rights abuses even worse. Offshore space is a frontier where people are allowed to act in very visceral ways because government isn't there keeping an eye on them. And to some degree that reminds us of our own capacity as people and what we're willing to do for what we believe in or what we want. Studying this space and reporting on it tells us something about us even on land. Think of the planet as sort of a living organism, and think of the oceans as a kind of wonder organ that serves lots of purposes. 50% of the air we breathe comes from the oceans. The ability of the planet to regulate its temperature, hugely dictated and controlled by the oceans. From an economic point of view, the oceans are the circulatory system of the global economy. In terms of biomedical research, there's no place on the planet that has more untapped potential solutions to really dire problems. Also, as a food source, huge percentages of the protein that many of the people around the world depend on come from the oceans. The longer we let it lapse into neglect, the more irreversible it becomes. The crimes that are environmental that happen out there range from ones that are disparate and but really severe, but they're hard to put a culprit behind them because they're just sort of pervasive. And that's like climate change. That's a crime. The crime is that we've been dumping carbon into the air, kind of thinking of the air as a bottomless trash can that could sustain it, and now we realize that's not the case. Well, similarly, the ocean has long been thought of as a bottomless trash can, and we, through the centuries, have dumped just inordinate amount of things, and often legally. Up until the 70s, it was legal to dump nuclear waste or oil in the oceans. Now it's viewed as a travesty and a crime to do that. But laws are only as good as their enforcement, and so even if you say something is forbidden, if you have no police who are enforcing that, then it's useless. Hopefully, if you don't get demoralized by how huge it is, people will then sort of say, okay, well, I can't solve all these problems. I can't help stowaways being murdered or arms being trafficked or people being enslaved or fish being stolen or acidification and plastic pollution, but I am most compelled by one of them or two of them, so I'm going to focus on those battles and not worry about the war. So my hope is to some degree that people will read it, feel urgent, and focus on a battle that moves them.